Hello everyone, welcome to the 2019 CAA Men's Basketball Media Day show on FlowHoops.com. I'm Bobby Broyles, joined with Bill Potter this year, and over the next hour we are going to go around the league, previewing team by team and looking at the storylines heading into what should be another exciting season in CAA basketball.
That's right, Bobby. We have a great show for you today as we will hear from all 10 head coaches and selected student athletes as they give us a glimpse of what to expect in the upcoming 2019-20 season.
Well, before we get started, it's time to officially release the 2019 CAA Men's Basketball preseason team and the predicted order of finish. Now we introduce to you the 2019 CAA Men's Basketball preseason Player of the Year, College of Charleston senior guard Grant Riller. Now here's the rest of the CAA Men's Basketball preseason first team. Brian Fobbs, Towson. Nathan Knight, William and Mary. Matt Lewis, James Madison. Eli Pemberton, Hofstra. Now here's a look at the CAA Men's Basketball preseason second team. Ryan Allen, Delaware. Darius Banks, James Madison. DeJour Bowie, Hofstra. Jordan Rowland, Northeastern. Cameron Winter, Drexel. And we wrap up with the CAA Men's Basketball preseason honorable mention honorees. Now we have joining us the CAA preseason Player of the Year, College of Charleston's Grant Riller. Grant, congratulations and thank you for taking time today to join us.
Definitely. What's going on?
Grant, what does being named preseason Player of the Year mean to you in a league full of great players?
It's a blessing. That's not really why I play the game, but at the same time, for your game to get recognized like that, it's always a good feeling, knowing that you put the work in and people are starting to realize. So it's a great feeling.
In your sophomore year, Charleston won the CAA title. What will it take for this year's team to return to that level?
A lot of focus. We have a completely new team than we've had in the past, but I feel like we got a lot of weapons, and I feel like it's possible as long as we have the right mindset. And think team first, I think we got a good shot.
You were selected to attend Chris Paul Elite Guard Camp this summer. How did that experience help you to become a better player?
It helped me a ton. Chris Paul and his team do a very good job running the camp. He's very hands-on. You get to learn a lot from him. You don't only get to play against him, but you get to watch film with him, talk about life with him. So that was a good part of it. Playing against those top-level guards was another good part. So I think overall it was just a great experience, and I was glad I got to be a part of it.
Speaking of the offseason, what do you think is the biggest area you've improved from last year to this year that we can expect?
Definitely my shooting. As far as three-point shooting, my percentage dipped a little bit last year. A lot of that had to do with a lot of different reasons, but I've been in the gym a lot lately in this offseason, and I'm ready to show people that I've improved in that area of my game.
Grant, thank you again for joining us. Congratulations on the recognition, and good luck this season.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Hofstra was picked atop the preseason poll, which was amongst the closest in CAA history. The Pride returned 3 starters from last season's CAA regular season championship team that went to the finals of the CAA men's basketball championship, including preseason All-CAA honorees Eli Pemberton and DeJour Bowie. College of Charleston was picked a close second to the Pride in the preseason poll. Led by preseason player of the year Grant Riller, the Cougars use a challenging non-conference slate of games, including matchups with Oklahoma State, Wake Forest, and VCU to prep for CAA play. Northeastern, which earned the 2019 CAA men's basketball championship, finished 3rd in the poll. The Huskies will turn to seniors Jordan Rowland and Bolden Brace, both of whom earned preseason recognition. And joining us now is the head coach of the Hofstra Pride, Joe Mihalik. Coach, congratulations on being picked first in the preseason poll. What does that mean for your program, garnering that type of respect and recognition in such a tough league?
Well, you have mixed emotions about it. You really do. I don't know if everybody wants to get picked first, and nobody wants to get picked first, because all it does is put that bullseye on your back. But, that's okay. It's, we're in a business where you have to either prove people right or you have to prove them wrong. So we'll have to prove people right. If they picked us first, then we got to prove them right. If they pick you last, you want to prove them wrong. So everybody gets motivated by certain things, and we'll just have to deal with this. And listen, here's my feelings on the league. I think we all know this. It's the best league in the country nobody knows about. We just got to get that more known, what a great league this is. And I'm not going to mention the schools because it'll be bulletin board material. But I think there's 6 teams that could finish first. You could have mentioned 6 schools that this school is picked first. Wouldn't have shocked me. And so somebody's going to get picked first. One of those 6 teams will get picked 6th. And at the end of the year, we'll see who's right and who's wrong.
Coach Eli Pemberton and DeJour Bowie were both preseason All-CAA picks. What should fans look from them this season?
Well, they're both fabulous guys. It's just so fun to be with these guys every day. I respect the heck out of both of these guys for, not just the great players they are, not just the committed students they are, but just the great people that they are. They're great leaders. They love the game. They're great representatives of this great university. And, we're lucky to have 2 people like that in the program. And they lead the way. Everybody talks about culture, and sometimes it gets to be an overused word. But, the culture we have is one that we're proud of. And it's because of people like DeJour Bowie and Elijah Pemberton. Now, on the court, everybody's going to have a different role this year. The same role, but yet a little different, because number 3 is not there anymore. In fact, I don't know if anybody will ever wear that number again here at Hofstra. But, with Justin Wright Foreman gone, everybody's got to play a little better. Everybody's got to do a little bit more. And so DeJour is our point guard, but he might have to do a few things more than he's done last year, and same for Elijah.
Coach, how about some players on your roster who have the potential to surprise this season?
Well, I guess, Tariq Coburn had a really good year last year. A year ago, he wasn't a starter. In fact, maybe a month and a half into the season, Tariq didn't start. But he had a real good second half of the season, and he had a great spring. Jalen Ray and Isaac Conti are 2 guys that have had good preseasons so far. Jalen's had some great moments in games. He's more of a proven guy than Isaac. But Isaac, on the other hand, has proven to us every day that he's somebody that we're excited about. So, those 2 guys, hopefully they'll be the surprises that you're talking about.
You have a challenging non-conference schedule ahead of you, including a trip out west to California. How will that prepare you for CAA play?
Well, and that's the goal with your non-conference schedule. You want to do so many things with your non-conference schedule. As you suggest, you want to sharpen your teeth for league play. You want to play some big schools. You want to play some regional schools. You want to get some rivalry games in there. You want to start some rivalries. You want to do so many things with it. And it's hard. I always say that's the hardest part of the job is your schedule. But yeah, it's exciting. We're excited about going to play UCLA. That doesn't mean that we're not going to run into a real juggernaut of a team. But every college kid in their lives wants to be able to look back and say, you know what, we went to Pauley Pavilion and played UCLA, or we went to Rupp Arena and played Kentucky, or something like that. So it's exciting to do that. Of course, we've got some other games that are going to be real challenges for us. So we hope that it does just what you suggest, that it gets us ready for the conference.
Coach Mihalik, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck this season, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
All right, Bobby, thanks.
The CAA is also excited about its new broadcast partnership for the 2019-20 season. There will be 139 games carried on flowhoops.com. For subscription information, head to flowsports.tv/CAA.
And the CAA will also have an 11-game national television package on the CBS Sports Network. The games begin with Charleston hosting Oklahoma State on November 13th, followed by 10 conference games. The CAA semifinals and championship game will also be on CBS Sports Network for the 4th straight year.
And before we preview our first team today, we want to bring in college basketball analyst, staff writer for The Athletic, and this year's CAA men's basketball insider, Eamon Brennan. Eamon, thank you for taking time out to join us today.
Thanks for having me, Bobby.
Eamon, when you look at the preseason team and the predicted order of finish that was just released, what immediately sticks out to you?
Yeah, well, for me, I think it was Hofstra so convincingly at the top spot. I think there are obvious reasons to get excited about Hofstra this year, right? I mean, it's a really good offensive team returning. Deshore Bowie was the defending defensive player of the year. Eli Pemberton was a real offensive weapon last season. Hofstra was just really good and barely missed out on the NCAA tournament after an incredible year. But I think there are reasons to ask questions about whether they can match what they did last season. Obviously, Justin Wright-Foreman is no longer there. He was taken in the latter half of the NBA draft, averaged 27 points per game, did so in an incredibly efficient fashion despite taking almost 35% of Hofstra's shots. He wasn't just a volume guy. You dig into his numbers and you realize that he took a lot of shots and had a lot of volume, but did so efficiently. I think he had just over 250 three-point attempts and shot like 42% from three. So he was sort of a generational player for Hofstra, and he was the fulcrum around which that offense ran. And then that offense was not only the best in the league last season and not only one of the 20 or 25 best in the country, but honestly, probably the best in the modern history of the Colonial Athletic Association. You go back all the way in Ken Palm's database, which dates back all the way to 2002, and look at the adjusted or points per game efficiencies of every team in the Colonial. That was the highest, right? Last year's Hofstra team was the most efficient offensive team the Colonial has seen in at least 17 seasons and probably longer. So whether they can recreate that without Justin Wright-Foreman is worth asking a question about. I also think because they were so good offensively last season, they didn't have to be great defensively. Hofstra was good. They were, I think, the 4th most efficient team defensively per possession in conference play, about 1.08 points per game. So really solid, but not fantastic. And I think it didn't really matter because they scored the ball so often that they could just get it out of the hoop and turn around and get another bucket. But whether that will be the case this year, I think is questionable. Whether they can guard to make up some of that margin, I think will be really interesting. So I think there were questions there maybe to ask about whether Hofstra was the overwhelming favorite and maybe the way we saw the voting pan out. But they're certainly well worth being in the mix. And like I said, there's plenty to get excited about as well.
Looking at each school's non-conference schedule, who has the potential to make the biggest splash early in the season?
Well, so I've got two, and in kind of different ways. I think the first is Charleston because of their breadth of schedule. They have a home game against Oklahoma State early on. They go to Marshall, which has been in the NCAA tournament in recent years. Interesting program under Dan D'Antoni. They have a game at UCF, which, as folks will remember, nearly knocked off Duke in the second round of the tournament last season. Really well coached, solid program in the American Athletic Conference. Will be kind of hunting a tournament bid this year and theoretically capable of getting there. They have the Wooden Legacy tournament, which starts with Wake Forest. That's, we're not sure how good Wake Forest is going to be this year. It's a really big year for Danny Manning out there. But at the very least, it's an ACC team that is going to be playing ACC competition throughout the year. So it's good for your resume if you win. Even if Wake Forest doesn't look that good, the numbers will sort of accrue over the course of the year in terms of net rating. And then if you win that game and Providence wins its first round game, you've got a game against a Friars team that is always in and around the NCAA tournament conversation, really well coached under Ed Cooley, and again plays in a high major league in the Big East. And that's just sort of all the run up to what I think is the marquee game on the schedule, and that's home against VCU in December. That VCU team is top 25. It's a team that has almost everybody returning, that was one of the best defensive teams in the country last season, that there are really, really high expectations for both inside and outside that program. Getting them on your home floor is massive, and having a chance to knock off the potential, I think, the favorite to win the Atlantic 10 this year and really make a deeper tournament run is huge. So Charleston has the games on their schedule, and I also think it's worth noting they're good enough to win those games, and that's where your chances making noise are. It's one thing to play a tough schedule; it's another to have a real shot of building wins. And if Charleston gets those wins or gets 4 or 3 or 4 of them, depending on which ones, then I think you might be looking early on at a team that is at least in the conversation for an at-large sort of bubble consideration type of situation heading into conference play. And that's all you can really ask for when you're a team in the Colonial or in any real mid-major league where it's so hard to get multiple bids, is just be in the conversation, in the at-large conversation. I think Charleston has a chance to do that. My other one is James Madison, and it's sort of a one-off, but I think it's really fascinating. They play at at Virginia on November 10th. Obviously, Virginia, the defending national champions. That's a really tough game. That's a kind of game that, in theory, you sort of write off and say, well, hey, we're going to take some lumps. It's Virginia. It's John Paul Jones Arena. What are you going to do? That may be the case, but Virginia is extremely inexperienced this year. They have guys returning, but they lost 2/3 of their scoring and almost all of their leadership in the form of Ty Jerome, Kyle Guy, DeAndre Hunter, even Jack Salt, the senior center from last year's national title team. The first 3 of those guys are all now in the NBA. There are a lot of inexperienced guys coming into the team, a lot of new faces, freshmen, young guys, red shirts who didn't play last season. And then there is leadership in the form of Kihei Clark and Mamadi Diakite, guys who were in the rotation last year, Jay Huff, Braxton Key, kind of on the fringes of the rotation, all talented players. But talking to Virginia's coaches just this past week in writing a piece I was writing for The Athletic about them, there is a lot of inexperience there. There's going to be a lot of figuring things out, a lot of uncertainty as to where offense is going to come from, who's going to make shots, how quickly some of the new guys can get up to speed defensively in that system that is complicated and difficult to pick up right away under Tony Bennett. And so I think it's safe to say Virginia is going to be a really good team. But on November 10th, that early in the season, it's safe, I think, also to say they're not going to be nearly as good as they're going to be December 10th or January or February 10th or March 10th. And if you can get them early and shock them early, I think it's a conceivable shock. And then you can ride that out the rest of the year as, hey, we won at John Paul Jones Arena. That's a massive chip on any team's resume.
Eamon, as you know, the conference season has been quite entertaining the last few years. Talk to us about what you think the league race will look like this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really tough to project. I think it makes sense the way the poll sort of shook out, in that the top 3 teams are all kind of what you'd expect, right? You've got Hofstra, Charleston, and Northeastern. Hofstra we talked about a little bit earlier. I think there is a lot of reason to be excited there again. Some questions to ask as to whether they're the overwhelming favorite or whether they should be sort of slotted in next to Northeastern and Charleston, sort of 1A, 1B, 1C. I actually picked Northeastern in my ballot just because I think Bill Cohen's teams, the one thing this year that you maybe question about their team from a returning players standpoint is point guard play. And his teams almost always have that, even if you don't necessarily know the guy who's going to be playing point guard, right? They always seem to be really well sort of handled, ball handling, mature, smart, make good plays on the offensive end. I think they'll get there. And then provided they do, Jordan Rowland is in line to have a massive season as a sophomore, as a senior, had a really, really great season as a junior, but was mostly a spot-up guy. I think he can also expand his game a little bit and put it, bring it off the dribble, get to the rim a little bit more. And he has a chance to be, a league player of the year type contender for a team that I think is going to be really, really good again. And then obviously we mentioned Charleston. There's a reason why their schedule seems favorable and seems doable. It's because they're so good. And Grant Riller is really the guy who will make them go. You sort of look at his numbers again this year. We talked about Wright Foreman. Riller wasn't far behind last year in terms of usage rate, shot percentage, up both in the 30s, had an offensive rating above 120. And normally the way it goes is you have a high volume of shots, a high volume of usage, and your efficiency goes down. Not the case for him. He did almost everything well, still had a really tidy assist-to-turnover ratio. He is the type of player that can carry a team to a league title in the conference like the CAA. You said it, it's going to be unpredictable. It almost always is. And so in a month or so or 2 months, this all might sound really silly, but I think that's how you kind of have to look at the league coming in right now from what we know. And it'll be fascinating to see what plays out.
Eamon, thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. Enjoy the start of the season, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back, everyone. It is now time to preview our first team for today as we take a look at the CAA preseason favorites, Hofstra. A great season for the Pride, Bill, as this team won the CAA regular season title and came up just short in the CAA championship game.
You're right, Bobby. Last year was a historic one for Hofstra as the Pride earned the first outright regular season title in program history. Justin Wright Foreman, who is one of the top scorers in CAA history, earned his second straight CAA Player of the Year accolade before being taken in the second round of the NBA draft by the Utah Jazz. And the Pride went to the NIT last year and pushed NC State to the limit in the first round after falling to Northeastern in the CAA championship. Of course, the Pride will have to replace Wright Foreman, who finished as the second highest scorer in CAA history, averaging over 27 points per game.
Well, we got to speak with head coach Joe Mihalik on how this year's team will replace the production of Justin Wright Foreman.
Well, we've been asked this question a lot about Justin, and there's really no one person that can replace Justin. That guy may never come along again. So we had to do it by committee. Everybody's going to have to do a little bit more, whether it's Elijah Pemberton or DeJour Bowie or Tariq Coburn, Isaac Conti, someone else who remains to be seen, Omar Silverio, Jalen Ray. All those guys are just going to have to be asked to do a little bit more.
The Pride do come in at the top spot in the CAA predicted order of finish and will be led by one of the guys Mihalik spoke on in Eli Pemberton.
With the departure of Wright Foreman to the NBA, Hofstra will lean on its three returning starters, Eli Pemberton, DeJour Bowie, and Tariq Coburn. Pemberton and Bowie both earned preseason All-CAA accolades, and Bowie's the reigning CAA Defensive Player of the Year, entering this season with 134 steals, 92 from joining the top 10 in CAA history. The Pride will face a challenging non-conference schedule, highlighted by a 3-game road trip through Southern California at UCLA, at Cal State Fullerton, at San Diego, and then a 2-game trip in Boca Raton, Florida.
Here is Eli Pemberton on the goals and expectations for the Pride.
Goals, expectations for the team this year is get back to the championship. Just a different outcome. Really, I just want our team to have a really big brotherhood, keep building every day. Short-term goals just to get 1% better every day until we get to the conference play.
Hofstra will begin their 2019-20 season at home versus San Jose State on Wednesday night, November the 6th at 7 o'clock, right here on FlowHoops.com. Just getting started here on today's CAA Men's Basketball Media Day show. Now it's time to take a look at College of Charleston. And Bill, it was a great season for the Cougars last year, even though they came up just short in the CAA semifinals to the eventual CAA champions Northeastern.
A year after winning the CAA championship, Charleston finished third in the regular season before falling in those semifinals. Jarrell Brantley and Grant Riller each collected all CAA first-team accolades before Brantley was chosen in the second round of the NBA draft. And Riller spent part of this offseason at the Chris Paul Elite Guard Camp, which will only help the CAA preseason Player of the Year continue his ascendance.
Here is Coach Earl Grant on what makes Grant Riller such a great player and his growth this offseason.
Well, first of all, it's kind of hard to believe he's going into his 5th season. He came in here as a little young kid, and now he's a grown man. Gotten better every year. Really buys into what we're trying to do as a program. From day one, he's been loyal, he's been committed. And so, just a special teammate, really into Charleston basketball, trying to be a great leader. He had a great summer of being the team captain and leading us. And so I'm just hoping that he can have a phenomenal senior year, and we can do all we can to make sure that he finishes his career in good fashion.
The Cougars do come in at the second spot in the CAA predicted order of finish, and rightfully so, Bill, as they will be led, as we mentioned, preseason Player of the Year, Grant Riller.
Charleston has won 75 games over the past 3 years and is primed for another big season. Riller will enter this upcoming year at 28 straight games, scoring at least 10 points, and has almost 1,800 career points. He's 177 from the top 15 in CAA history. And after starting 32 of 33 games as a sophomore, Brevin Galloway returns for the College of Charleston, as does Zep Jasper, who appeared in all 33 games and started 14 as a redshirt freshman. And as you can expect from an Earl Grant squad, the Cougars will prep for CAA play with a challenging non-conference slate, including a trip to the Wooden Legacy with an opening game against Wake Forest and home games against Georgia State, Oklahoma State, and VCU.
Here is Grant Riller on how he will take more of a leadership role for this Cougar team.
I definitely have taken on more of a leadership role. just talking to coach more, talking to other people around the staff, getting their perspective on how I should go about things. I think to fill Jarrell's shoes is more of a collective effort. We got a lot of guys returning that also got a lot of experience, so I think it's on them just as much as me, but I'm ready to lead the team and take on this bigger role.
College of Charleston will tip off their 2019-20 season at home against USC Upstate on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, November the 5th on FlowHoops.com. It is now time to preview the defending CAA champions Northeastern. The Huskies found themselves once again in the CAA title game last year, Bill, but a different outcome this time around as they were able to cut down the nets and capture their second CAA men's basketball championship.
You know, last year Northeastern was the preseason favorite in the CAA, but injuries throughout non-conference play really set the Huskies back, and they came on strong in conference play, collecting the CAA men's basketball title with an 82-74 win over Hofstra. The Huskies' title was their second since joining the CAA. Vasa Pushitsa was named the tournament's most outstanding player and also earned all CAA first-team honors. In 2 years at Northeastern, Pushitsa recorded 1,061 points. Finishing second on the team to Pushitsa in scoring, Jordan Rowland earned all CAA third-team accolades.
Head coach Bill Cohen on what the Huskies will have to do this season to continue the recent success.
I think in order for us to be successful is we're going to have a tightly knit group, but a team that's together in the locker room. Our schedule is going to be challenging once again. We're going to have to go out and play against the very best competition, and we're going to have a learning curve. We've lost some really experienced players, guys that have been battle tested, and we have guys who are willing to step up and shoulder that load. I think we're going to need some time together to kind of blend together, and our key to our success is how closely we remain connected to one another.
Replacing Vasa won't be easy for Northeastern, but they do bring back a pair of key veterans in Bolden Brace and, like you said, Jordan Rowland.
You know, Jordan Rowland and Bolden Brace both shot over 40% from three-point range last season, so that's a great place to start. Rowland was a preseason second-team selection, while Brace was an honorable mention pick, and Jordan hit 99 three-pointers last season. Some of the players who had injuries last season should have returned to the lineup, including Maxime Bursaco, who missed all of last year due to injury. 4 freshmen and 2 transfers should also factor into the lineup, including Illinois transfer Greg Ogboden, will provide a front court presence after sitting out last year. Vitor Kubrillo, who comes in from the Croatian national team, will be one of 4 freshmen who signed with the Huskies, and they're looking for big things from him as they face a non-conference schedule that features home games against Harvard, Old Dominion, and Davidson, and then a trip to the Gulf Coast Showcase in Estero, Florida.
Bolden Brace took some time with us to tell us about the team's goals as they look to defend their conference crown.
Our goal is to win a CAA championship, be the best offensive efficiency team in the CAA, as well as the best defensive efficiency team in the CAA. Another goal we have is to lead the CAA in free throw percentage, as well as getting defensive rebounds.
The Huskies will be on the road to open their season at city rival Boston University Tuesday night, November the 5th, tip time 7 o'clock. Time to look at JMU on today's show. Bill, the Dukes were one of the younger teams in the CAA last season and came away with some tough wins and were involved in a lot of dramatic close finishes.
Well, you know, the nice part about having one of the youngest teams last season is now the Dukes are one of the most experienced teams coming into this season. And James Madison can look forward to having a CAA high 4 starters return for the team this year. Last year, Stuckey Mosley, Matt Lewis, and Deshaun Parker all earned CAA accolades, and Deshaun Parker's 100 assists made him just the 5th JMU freshman ever to post 100 in his freshman season.
We spoke with the Dukes head coach Lou Rowe about his returning veteran players.
Well, obviously, again, we built it around a group of guys 3 years ago. We brought in another core, and the whole plan was to have a team that was deep, a team that had some experience. You gave some young guys a chance to play. They got to cut their teeth, so to speak, and you would hope that those guys are now ready to lead this third batch of guys, this third group of freshmen that, we also feel really, really good about. They're all really good kids, and we just wanted to grow up with those guys, and we feel like by doing that, we put ourselves in a position this year to be competitive with layers of guys, freshmen, sophomores, and juniors that are really ready to compete in this league.
One of those players we have spoke of is Matt Lewis, who garnered preseason All-CAA first-team recognition.
You know, he leads JMU's 4 starters who returned from last season, and in just 2 years, Matt Lewis has already gone over 1,000 career points. He's part of a quartet with Darius Banks, Dwight Wilson, and Deshaun Parker that combined for 62% of JMU's points last year. And the Dukes, while they are experienced, they still only have 1 senior on the roster, and 18 of their 13 players on the roster are sophomores or freshmen. The Dukes have stepped up their non-conference schedule this year, and their first road game of the season will actually be at defending national champion Virginia on November 10th, and the Dukes will meet some old in-state rivals in George Mason, Old Dominion, and Radford. This year, of course, also marks the last year for the Dukes at the Convocation Center, as they'll move into the brand-new Atlanta Union Bank Center in 2020-21.
Spoke with Matt Lewis on the goals and expectations for the Dukes this season.
My goal for this year is to start off the season on a good note. You know, we got some pretty good opponents. We got UVA, we got Charlotte to open up. So starting off on a good note is going to help us get confidence for the season upcoming.
JMU opens their season at home in the Convo versus Charlotte on Wednesday night, November the 6th at 7:30 on flowhoops.com. Delaware is now up on the 2019 CAA Men's Basketball Media Day show right here on flowhoops.com. A winning season for Delaware last year as the Blue Hens were able to reach the semifinals of the CAA tournament, which has to give this young team some valuable experience.
You know, we've seen it year over year now with Delaware under head coach Martin Inglesby, where the Blue Hens have improved their wins record every season. Last year they had 17 wins, which was the program's most since the 2013-14 season. And as you mentioned, Bobby, they reached the semifinals of the CAA championship for the first time in 5 years with a dramatic comeback win over William & Mary. You know, senior Eric Carter earned second-team All-CAA honors last year after almost averaging a double-double, and became the first Blue Hen on one of the 2 first teams since 2017.
We spoke with head coach Martin Inglesby on how he has seen this program grow since his arrival in Newark.
Yeah, I think we've created an identity as a basketball program. We spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really developing our culture and kind of who we are as a program, our core values, kind of the pillars of success within our group. And again, this is the first year we've had everybody on the roster, guys we recruited, guys we identified on the recruiting trail, or guys, transfers that we added to the group, high character guys, competitors, guys that know how to play the game. So I think that's where we've made the most progress.
Delaware returns a lot of pieces, but will add a few freshmen and transfers into the fold as well.
You know, Delaware took a trip to the Bahamas this summer, and it could not have come at a better time for the Blue Hens, as it allowed the team to bond and experiment with several new pieces, including transfers Nate Darling, Justin Mutz, and Dylan Painter, all of whom will be eligible in this upcoming season. Those 3 will join returning starters Ryan Allen and Kevin Anderson, and Allen paced the Blue Hens with 16 points per game in just 22 games last year, while Anderson handed out nearly 4 assists while starting almost all of Delaware's games. And you can tell Coach Inglesby feels good about his squad this year, as the Blue Hens have really stepped up their non-conference schedule. They'll have 3 games in the Sunshine Slam against Oakland, Southern Illinois, and UTSA, and then the Blue Hens will take on Villanova in the Never Forget Tribute Classic in Newark, New Jersey.
Here is Ryan Allen on some of the new pieces that will be joining this Delaware team this year.
To the CAA, they might be new, but to us, like, we've known them for a year now, so they've already been a part of the family, already been like a part of a fit to our team. Like, we're practicing with them, we've been working on things with them, so like we shouldn't miss a beat really when the season starts.
The Blue Hens will square off with Bridgewater at home to begin their 2019-20 season on Tuesday night, November the 7th at 7 o'clock on flowhoops.com. Next up on today's CAA Men's Basketball Media Day show, we take a look at Towson. A tough season for the Tigers, Bill, as they basically had a whole new roster last year, but expectations are higher going into this season with most of their returners back.
You know, the Tigers tied for 8th last season as they worked to bring together its roster, but still, Brian Fobbs and Dennis Tunstall each earned CAA honors last season, with Fobbs collecting All-CAA second-team accolades and Tunstall was an All-Defensive Team selection. Tunstall was 9th in the CAA with almost 8 rebounds per game and helped lead a Tigers defense that led the CAA in field goal percentage defense, limiting their opponents to under 44% shooting. With a Pat Scarry squad, you always know the Tigers are going to be tough on the glass, and Towson paced the CAA in both rebound margin and offensive rebounds per game.
We caught up with Coach Pat Scarry on how all that experience will help the Tigers this season.
Well, we'll find out. Mental toughness has been a big piece this offseason. Our ability to focus and execute and communicate, especially in close ball games, which ultimately will define a team. We have 208 minutes, returning between the 9 guys that were in the program, or the 7 that played and the 2 sitting out. Plus, we have 2 freshmen we think that are going to compete immediately. So, that could be a good problem. If we're going to be a good team, our depth is something that's going to have to carry us. But that also ties into guys have to have an awareness of what they need to bring to the table. Not everybody's bringing shooting and scoring the ball. It just doesn't work that way. The sooner we buy into those other things, I think the better chance we have to have really good success.
One of the veterans returning for this team is Brian Fobbs, who made a big impact in his first season with the Tigers.
Expectations are high just north of Baltimore as Towson returns 86% of its scoring punch from a year ago and 90% of its rebounding muscle, including its top 3 scorers in Fobbs, Tobias Howard, and Nakai Sanders, and its top 3 rebounders in Dennis Tunstall, Sanders, and Fobbs. At 17.5 points per game, Fobbs was the 5th leading scorer in the CAA in just his first year, and among Towson's returnees, 9 of them played 10 or more minutes and started at least 3 games. The Tigers are going to have a challenging non-conference schedule as well, as they'll participate in the Charleston Classic, where they'll meet Xavier in the first round. In addition, Towson will join Liberty, Tulane, and Akron before Christmas in the battle for the Capital Tournament in Washington, D.C. at the new Entertainment and Sports Arena, which is also the site of the 2020 CAA Men's Basketball Championship.
Here is Brian Fobbs on the strengths in his game and what he improved this offseason.
I think the best part of my game is scoring the basketball. I think that's what makes me who I am, and what I have to work on is just being a better leader, holding people accountable, and that comes with holding myself to a standard and accountable first, so I can hold my teammates to that level, and they have to stick to that certain standard. So I think just being vocal more on the court, being a coach on and off the court, and just doing all the little things.
The Tigers open up their season at home versus George Washington on Tuesday night, November the 5th at 7 o'clock, right here on FlowHoops.com. Now we take a look at William and Mary. And Bill, it was a tough season for the Tribe last year, but they begin a new season with a new head coach in Dane Fisher.
The Tribe hired Dane Fisher as the 31st head coach in William and Mary history on April 2nd, and Fisher comes to William and Mary after spending the last 4 seasons as the top assistant at George Mason. One of the rising stars in the coaching business, Fisher has been instrumental in turning multiple programs into winners, helping teams earn 7 postseason appearances, so you can see where William and Mary is trying to take its program.
Here is the Tribe's new head coach, Dane Fisher, on what excites him the most about this year's team.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that excites me about this year's team is I think we have a chance to have the best front court in the league. And, anytime you're starting with a really good front court, that's a great place to start. I think everybody knows how good Nathan Knight is. Andy Van Vliet is the same type of player in terms of an inside-out forward, scores around the basket, can shoot the 3 really, really well. So I think those 2 guys to be the foundation for our team this year is really exciting. The second thing is I think how much opportunity there is for growth with this team. We have 7 new players when you count Andy from sitting out last year as a transfer. And when you do that, there's a lot of guys that are going to be in new roles and have new opportunities. And I think that where we are now relative to where we can be at the end of the season is a long ways. And our goal will be that we can play our best basketball towards March.
As he mentioned, Bill, the Tribe do bring back one of the most dominant front court players in the CAA and probably the country in Nathan Knight.
If you're taking over a new team, Nathan Knight is a great pillar to have. Last season, Knight earned first-team All-CAA honors after a junior year in which he posted 21 points and 8.6 rebounds per game. With those 8.6 rebounds and 2.3 blocks per game, Knight also earned a place on the CAA All-Defensive Team honors. And when you're in the same company as Tim Duncan as the only other Division I player since 1992 to average at least 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks in a season, you're doing something right. And it's one of the reasons Knight was a finalist for the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Award given to the nation's top collegiate center. The Tribe do have some newcomers on their roster as 5 newcomers join the 9 returnees on their roster, including returning starters in Knight and Luke Lowy. Senior 7-foot transfer Andy Van Vliet who sat out last season as a transfer from Wisconsin, bolsters the Tribe roster along with the return of experienced players in junior Jahar Williams, sophomores Quinn Blair, Thornton Scott, and Mikkel Harvey.
Here is Nathan Knight on the strengths of his game and what he worked on to get better in the offseason.
I mean, the best part of my game would probably be just my ability to score the ball on the low mid post. That's just something that I think I've proven these past couple of years. And I guess the biggest thing that I've tried to work on in the off season is probably just playing on the perimeter. Shooting threes, attacking off the drive, because the game is becoming more perimeter oriented. So, the ability to do that is going to pay dividends for us this season and for me, later on in my career.
William & Mary tips off their 2019-20 campaign on the road versus High Point on Tuesday night, November the 5th at 7 o'clock. We continue on with today's CAA Men's Basketball Media Day show. Thank you for joining us here on FlowHoops.com. Drexel is now up, and Bill, the Dragons improved once again on their conference record despite losing significant players to injury.
And despite that myriad of injuries, Drexel tied for 6th last season, the first time the Dragons have avoided playing in the opening round of the CAA championship under head coach Zach Spiker. The Dragons were tough, winning 5 games last year after trailing by 10 or more points, and Troy Harper collected third-team All-CAA accolades after leading the Dragons with nearly 16 points per game. James Butler paced the CAA by shooting almost 60% from the field, and that's even before we touch on the Rookie of the Year in Cameron Winter.
Here is head coach Zach Spiker on the importance of health for his team and getting back some of those injured players like Kirk Lee and Zach Walton.
Yeah, I think if you look at our roster, certainly there's been not as many moments as we'd like to be at 100% and everybody operating at optimal physical levels over many years. But I think if we can have a roster where everyone's healthy, it puts us in a good spot. When you talk about players that have proven when healthy it can be very, very productive, we love it. So I think that they will add to our depth, add to our firepower, and add to our overall ability to put pressure on teams.
Along with Kirk Lee and Zach Walton, the Dragons do return the CAA Rookie of the Year, Cameron Winter, who made a big impact for the Dragons in his first season.
Winter became the 3rd Drexel player to be named CAA Rookie of the Year since the school joined the CAA, and the first since CAA fans will remember this name. Damian Lee won the award in 2012. Averaging over 11 points per game, Winter was second in the CAA with 5.4 assists per game, and his 44 steals were the 6th highest total in the CAA. Including the inside-outside duo of Butler and Winter, Drexel brings back 12 letter winners from last season's squad, and as Coach Spiker mentioned, a return to health from both Zach Walton, who put up almost 10 points in 7 games last year, and Kirk Lee, who averaged over 9 points per game in 6 games, should bolster the Dragons as both players missed extended time last year.
We spoke with Cameron Winter on what he worked on this offseason to build off his Rookie of the Year campaign.
This offseason I worked on my jump shot a lot and my body, and mostly just being a leader, because I think that's going to help everybody else if I'm able to lead better this year.
The Dragons will be on the road to start the 2019-20 season with a short trip to Temple on Tuesday night, November the 5th at 8 o'clock. Now we take a look at UNCW, and Bill, the Seahawks are coming off a tough season but bring back a lot of exciting players, in particular sophomore guard Kai Taves.
In the 10th place season last year, UNCW saw Devontae Kaycock continue his record-setting run while also finding a foundational piece for the future in Kai Taves. Kaycock collected first-team All-CAA accolades after averaging a double-double with over 15 points and 12 rebounds per game, and after excelling in the NBA Summer League, Kaycock signed an Exhibit 10 contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now back to Kai Taves. In his freshman season, all he did was set a CAA single-season record for assists, handing out 253 on the year, and he earned all rookie accolades. A preseason honorable mention pick, the Seahawks will definitely be leaning on him to initiate its offense.
Let's take a listen to the UNCW's head coach CB McGrath on his sophomore guard Kai Taves.
Yeah, Kai had a terrific season last year as a freshman. I was expecting big things from him. You don't necessarily put numbers on kids. Would I have said that he was going to set an assist record? No. But I was expecting him to have a huge year for us, whatever that means. And that's what we expect now. But the good news is, we got some other guys that are pushing him so far. He was with his senior national team all summer, and Shaquem Phillips, who's a freshman, Michael Carew, who's coming as a transfer. Those guys are doing a nice job of defending him better than we were able to do in practice last year. And it's really pushed Kai to realize he has to get better, to have, an impact on the season. He's going to have a better season, hopefully, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have more assists. That's why I used to tell Devontae, like, you're going to get better as a player. You might not ever average 13.5 rebounds a game again. That was an unbelievable number, but you're going to get better as a player. So with Kai, I don't want him hung up on assist records. I want him hung up on becoming a better basketball player and helping our team win.
As we have mentioned, Kai Taves will be a vital piece to this UNCW squad in 2019-20, but there will be other pieces around him that will need to step up as well.
Indeed, and the Seahawks used their foreign trip to Italy to bring together a team that sees 8 newcomers join its roster. Both Carter Skaggs, a graduate transfer from Washington State, and Micah Carew, a transfer from Florida, will be counted on to bolster the UNCW offense. And after sitting out the 2018-19 season, Martin Linson is also eligible as well. Ty Gadsden, who is second on the Seahawks in scoring as a sophomore, leads a group of 3 returning starters, including Taze and junior Jay Estime. Estime averaged 7.5 points per game as part of UNCW's 3-guard starting lineup a year ago.
Here is Jay Estime on what he worked on this offseason in preparation for this year.
I think my IQ and my shooting ability is definitely the best parts of my game. But this summer I've been working on getting to the basket and finishing, with contact, working on my ball handling, passing, and just being a better leader all around, being, more outspoken and vocal. So we're definitely looking for the championship this year.
UNCW tips off their 2019-20 season at home versus Johnson and Wales on Tuesday night, November the 5th at 7 o'clock on flowhoops.com. Elon is now up on today's show. A lot of change for this program build during the offseason as the Phoenix bring in a new head coach in Mike Schrage.
After tying for 6th last year behind Tyler Sebring and Steven Santa Ana, Elon hired Mike Schrage as its 18th men's basketball head coach on April 5th. An Atlanta native, Schrage spent the previous 2 seasons at Ohio State after 1 year at Butler University. Schrage was an assistant at Stanford for 8 years after spending 9 seasons within the Duke program, and Schrage's learned under some of the best minds in college basketball, and with his connections in the Southeast, the future looks bright at Elon.
We caught up with new head coach Mike Schrage and got his goals and expectations for the Phoenix in his first season.
The goals this year are just to get better every day, build the family, the culture, the standards that I think will produce a lot of success in the future, and hopefully this year we'll live with the results as long as we do that this year as well.
The Phoenix lose a lot of seniors from last year and will be depending on a lot of young returning players to play significant minutes, along with a few incoming transfers.
Coach Schrage's first class at Elon consists of 5 newcomers: incoming freshmen Hunter McIntosh, Zach Irvin, and Hunter Woods, Stanford graduate transfer Marcus Sheffield, and Butler transfer Gerald Gillens-Butler. Sheffield, a preseason honorable mention pick, appeared in 27 games for Stanford last year, averaging over 5.5 points and knocking down 33-pointers.
Here is one of the returning veterans, Simon Wright, on how he will get this year's newcomers to come together.
We hang out all the time. We're always at the gym, always practicing. We crack jokes all the time. But we've really made an effort just to kind of get to know each other outside of the court. And so, we're all hanging out on the weekend or whatever. We've gotten to know each other pretty well. And of course, everybody here over the summer, there's not a lot going on here this summer. And so you really get a chance to bond with guys. And that's been a huge plus for us just because we're all new guys, but we do have great chemistry already. And, we're just trying to improve on that every day.
Elon opens up the 2019-20 season at home versus Mars Hill on Tuesday night, November the 5th. Tip time is at 7:30 right here on flowhoops.com. That completes the 2019 CAA Men's Basketball Media Day show. If you missed any of the team previews, you can watch today's show right here on flowhoops.com or go over to the CAA's YouTube page.
Remember, fans, that you can follow the league today and throughout the season on many of our social media outlets, such as Instagram and Facebook by searching CAA Sports, or on Twitter at CAA Basketball, and make sure to use that hashtag CAA Hoops.
CAA Men's Basketball Media Day isn't over yet. Coming up this afternoon at 1:15, log on to CAA.tv and listen in on the CAA Men's Basketball Media Day teleconference, as members of the media will have their opportunities to ask questions to the coaches and student athletes to get their perspective on the upcoming 2019-20 season.
And fans, you can participate as well. Send in your questions to Twitter at CAA Basketball, and once again remember to use that hashtag CAA Hoops, and you could hear your question on air.
That is it from us here on flowhoops.com. Thank you, fans, for tuning in, and we look forward to the start of the 2019-20 season. For Bill Potter, I'm Bobby Broyles. Have a great day, everyone.